What's up, y'all? I'm Will here with Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, one of the highest rated hospitality podcasts in the world, brought to you by us at Schedulefly. We provide a very simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service. If you're on pencil and paper or Excel, or you're on some software with tons of bells and whistles and features you don't need or use, Schedulefly is the perfect place for you. Easy to use, point, click, and go, and we'll take great care of you. Schedulefly.com, free trial, check it out. Also, this podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, Pop Menu and The Giving Kitchen and Kickfin, and you're going to hear about them in just a minute. First of all, let's talk about today's guest. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is a fun episode, and this was actually Zach Feinstein and I got connected through our mutual friends at Opus, and we talk a little bit about Opus, which y'all got to check out. But we talk more importantly, as we always do in this in these episodes, about his story. And this dude's 34 years old, bought his first place 10 years ago at 24, owner financed, doubled sales in the first year, and it's just been growing since then. 4 locations across 3 concepts. This dude is super sharp, very intentional. We talk a lot about culture. They have a great culture there. They've invested heavily into their culture. They keep people. They attract and retain great people. They have a commission structure versus the typical tip model. So we get into that and why they're doing that. Man, this was awesome. And you can just tell, dude is 34 years old. The world is his oyster. He's going to do really well, and he's going to do really well because the byproduct will be his success. But the reason he'll have that success, I believe, is because he's doing this for all the right reasons and has all the right intentions and really understands what it takes to build a great, true hospitality business and bring the right people into the fold to help him do that. I love talking to Zach. This was a lot of fun. Tons of good topics on this episode. Really appreciate him taking the time to do this. Thank y'all for listening and watching. Stay tuned. More episodes coming soon. All right. Give your team the gift of Pop Menu AI Answering, a simple solution for phones ringing off the hook. AI Answering handles calls 24/7, 365 days a year, so your staff can focus on in-person guests. Customize your greetings and responses, answer common questions, promote specials and events, and send follow-up links to ordering and reservations. AI Answering handles it all while escalating more complex conversations back to your team. Never miss another tasty revenue opportunity. Pop Menu, the marketing technology platform designed to make growing your restaurant easy. Discover more AI restaurant tools that turn your to-do list into an already done list by requesting a demo today. For a limited time, get $100 off your first month, plus lock in one unchanging monthly rate at popmenu.com. Go now to get $100 off your first month at popmenu.com. Be sure to tell them that Will from Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast and Schedulefly sent you. Y'all, this is a great business. I just told you what they like me to say. I will say that we have a lot of mutual customers at Schedulefly with Pop Menu. They all agree. Great product, great customer service, great results. Check them out, popmenu.com. This episode is also brought to you by The Giving Kitchen. Giving Kitchen provides emergency assistance for food service workers through financial support and a network of community resources. Since its inception in 2013, Giving Kitchen has served over 15,000 food service workers and awarded over $10.5 million to food service workers in crisis. If you or someone you know is a food service worker in crisis, please ask for help. thegivingkitchen.org, and again, that's thegivingkitchen.org. Y'all, this is a phenomenal organization. Jen, the founder, has been on this podcast. Jen Heidinger Kendrick, check out that episode to hear their full story. But if you know somebody or you need help, go to thegivingkitchen.org. Incredible organization and very responsive and has a wonderful mission. Check them out. All right. We are recording here at Everybody Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. Zach, take a second to introduce yourself, if you would.
Yeah, I'm Zach Feinstein, the CEO and co-founder of the Feinstein Group. We're located in Tampa, Florida. It's a hospitality management company. We own and operate three separate brands, four locations. And those brands are the Living Room, Saunders Social Club, which is a cocktail bar, and the Black Pearl, which is a French and American fine dining restaurant.
Nice, man. Okay, well, we got connected through our mutual friends at Opus, so we'll talk about them in a little bit. But I always like to ask everybody. I've done over 500 episodes now, and I'm always so curious because I have so much admiration for those of you that do what you do, because I don't think I could do it. When and why did you get started in hospitality?
So that's kind of a two-part question. So when I was little, I grew up right behind a pizzeria. My house was like 9 houses from a good pizzeria here in town. And that was my first job, was folding pizza boxes illegally, probably as under the table cash. But I kind of got bitten by the bug there. I did that, and I did delivery, and I cooked. I did a bunch of stuff. And then
How old were you when you first started? Like 14 or something like
yeah,
that?
14, 15, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, so I had that role, and my family, my father was in kind of the IT world, so I left there and worked in my dad's business for a little while, and then I went out to college, and I'm really into film and cinematography, and so I originally, went in for film, and then I went to like a welcome to their hospitality campus, and I just kind of fell in love with it, and I love this business because we get to be a part of people's story, right? We get their celebrations, their life accomplishments, all those things. We get to make people feel seen and heard, and so I just really love hospitality, and I haven't looked back since. I left college and got a job at a fine dining restaurant here in Tampa, and then ended up going to work for Burger King for a few years, and here we are after that.
Okay. Well, it's funny because so many people, 95% or more that come on this podcast, when I ask them that question, they started when they were like 14 or 15. And something happens. For a lot of people that start at 14 or 15, they're like a couple of my kids are like, that was cool, but I'm not doing that. I don't have what it takes. And I think I was probably the same. So, well, okay, there's a lot of things I want to ask you about, but let's start just with so your group there. How long did you say you've had your group?
So we founded the Feinstein Group on June 30th of 2014. So it's been almost 10 years.
So 10 years, 4 locations across 3 different concepts.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. What was the first one you started?
So we purchased actually, I was 24 when we started the company. So banks don't like to give 24-year-olds millions of dollars. So I ended up buying a business called the Black Pearl.
Okay.
We've kind of completely changed it since we purchased it, but that was the only way I could break into ownership, at the tax bracket I was in, and with the experience level. So we bought that first. In the first year, we doubled sales, and then we bought the Living Room the next year. And then we took a little bit of an opening hiatus for a couple of years. We ended up opening a barbecue spot in 2018, ended up closing during COVID. And then we had 2019, we opened Sonder, and then we just opened the second location of the Living Room in a town called Wesley Chapel here, and that was in August of last year. So kind of some big movement in the last couple of days, or last couple of years, sorry.
Talk about buying. So you're 24 and you buy the Black Pearl. How do you finance that?
Owner finance. So the previous owners held the paper on it. My wife and I had, a good amount of cash that we'd saved from, our corporate lives and just life in general. And yeah, it was owner financed, and then we ended up knocking them out with an SBA loan, like a couple of years down the line or whatever. But without that family, the Feinstein Group probably wouldn't be here because, like I said, no banks were loaning me money at that time.
So tell me about owner finance. That means that you go, okay, this is how much we're going to pay you over the next X number of years, and that's obviously going to come from the business.
Yeah, so just same thing as using a bank loan. So you just say, yeah, we're going to give you guys 25% down, and we'll amortize it over X years at X percentage, and then you actually get a UCC stamp, so it's a legally binding a loan document. And so we did that, and I think after like 3 or 4 years, we ended up refinancing, and now we own the building there, and obviously we have other stuff going on. So, but very grateful to the family that sold us that restaurant, the LaRoche family, the original owners of the Black Pearl, because they really helped us kind of grow and get to where we are today.
They must have, yeah. I mean, I would imagine. So probably part of that was they wanted to sell the restaurant. Maybe they wanted to sell it to somebody they really trusted. So I would imagine like getting owner financing, they have to really buy into you as an operator, and because they probably maybe could find somebody else that could, not have to do owner financing. So,
Yeah, we had a good, I didn't know them previous to the purchase, but I guess they'd had like, I don't know, 10, 15 people come look at it and over the course of many years, and they never found someone that they like working with. And we just kind of hit it off in the first meeting that I was there with them. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And we still have a good relationship, but yeah, no, it's interesting how much the company's grown in the last 10 years. We used to have, 7 employees. Now we're over 200 something employees. So,
oh gosh, well, how did you double revenue in the first year?
so it was pretty simple. The couple that owned it, they had it for like 20 years. And so, they really weren't actively in the business every day and so on and so forth. So just some TLC. They weren't doing anything electronically. There was no technology in the restaurant. So we switched over to a good reservation partner. We digitized the books, we marketed the restaurant, and just those small changes, plus some operational stuff, cleaning up the restaurant, kind of reorganizing some things, and getting a nicer wine list together, so on and so forth. But yeah, all that came together in the first year, and it was great for us. It was awesome year. Felt good the first year owning a business and doubling the sales, which was pretty neat.
No, that's really good. That's awesome. Um, well, before we started officially recording, we were talking about your philosophy and your culture, and you mentioned that you're a big Danny Meyer fan, and so many people over the years I've come across have just, setting the tables like,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what an, and then he has a protege, Will Guidara, and I haven't read
Mhm.
um, Unreasonable Hospitality yet. I've heard about it, so tell me about that and how, like, when did you get dialed into Danny Meyer and his philosophy? And I got setting the table probably a dozen years ago. It's been around a long time. So, what was the story behind that for you?
Well, I read the book a long time ago and kind of put it down and didn't really think about things. And we were young when we started the company, so we had different goals back then. And really, it was COVID, I think, kind of made me sit down and think, okay, what is the strategic plan for the next 5 years? What do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? We had those things in our minds, but we didn't really have a defined vision around it. And when we talked about company culture and what we stand for, we already stand for the tenets of enlightened hospitality, which is what Danny Meyer talks about a lot. But then I ended up reading a bunch of hospitality books, and the first one I read was Setting the Table, and I was like, man, this is exactly what we do already. And so being able to use his experience and his knowledge, and also unreasonable hospitality, we basically aligned perfectly, and we were already doing the things that are preached in that book. We just didn't have a system around it. So it's really how to teach culture, how to implement culture, and how to live up to it. That's the most important thing, right? You can have like the most sparkly culture statement in the world, you can have all these documents and training, but like if you don't live up to the culture, it doesn't matter. So and that's the hardest part, and it's getting everyone that works for you in a big organization to follow that culture as well. And really, again, it's through living it. If they see that the priorities are aligned, not only what we say but what we do, and they feel safe in their roles, and so on and so forth, and that's when the magic starts to happen with culture.
Well, particularly, in an environment where it's so incredibly hard to attract and retain good people, great culture takes care of a lot of that. But tell me, just talk a little bit more specifically about your culture and what are the, what's the foundation of what?
Yeah, so the foundation of our company culture, the Feinstein Group's company culture statement is welcome home, and that's for guests and for our employees, but that stands for hospitality, opportunities, meritocracy, and excellence. And really, hospitality is the foundation of everything that we do, and not just hospitality with guests. Obviously, that's important, but we take actually our hospitality with our employees first. So, how we're serving them on a daily basis, how we're making them feel seen and heard, all the things we'd want to do or them to do with a guest. How are we doing that with them? And really factoring their future and employment with us into all the decisions that we make. That's first and foremost. And that inward hospitality is what we call it, but that inward hospitality really helps blossom the external part of hospitality, right? Which is the employees to the guests. So we put our employees first every day, and then we expect our employees to put their coworkers first, and then next would be the guest. And really that bedrock of hospitality, it's not just in the front of the house, it's not just with anyone that touches a guest, it's, we have cooks serving, servers, we have, serving, we have dishwashers serving cooks, we have our, HR department here at corporate serving the restaurant manager. So that hospitality ecosystem is super important, and we preach it a lot. So I would say that's probably the bedrock and foundation of what we do. And then, the other kind of pillars of our company culture statement, opportunities, we talk about, never walking by an opportunity. When we first purchased the living room, I can be a little bit fanatical sometimes, and someone spilled some blueberries by the back door, and over a weekend they never got cleaned up. It was in the exterior of the building, and it was like, I watched the cameras, it was like 670 times or something the blueberries got stepped over. So we have this saying, we're like, don't step over the blueberries, right? To take every opportunity to not only invest in yourself, but also invest in those around you. And so to improve whatever that opportunity may be, meritocracy is the belief that, we reward results, we reward hard work. It's not so much about how long you've worked here, but more so what you've done while you're here. And then excellence, I think that speaks for itself. But we try to excel in everything that we do, and take what we do extremely seriously, and try to excel every day. I'm a big proponent of the theory of marginal gains. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but improving by 1% every day, and in 365 days will be 365% better. And that's really the simplified version of it. We put our managers through a 10-week training course on how to implement culture, how to hire for emotional intelligence, how to live, breathe, and eat what we're talking about, and how to essentially make sure they're living up to it every day. And so it definitely didn't start this way, and that's where Opus came in for us as well, as a big piece of that. But it's I'm very proud of the culture we've created, but it is a very difficult thing to do. And I'm proud to say that I think we have a very strong culture here at the Feinstein Group.
Easy to articulate, easy to talk about, easy to say this is what we do, but the execution of that, like you said earlier, is key, and it's not easy. And it's something you have to just keep doing every single day and reinforcing every single day. I love the don't step over the blueberries. You said early on that you like sharing stories and telling stories, and you like film. I mean, so that right there, what a great example, because don't step over the blueberries is something that everybody's going to remember because it's unique, it's different, but it's easy to understand. Okay, yeah, I remember, like, there were blueberries there. And then you're just going to have that in your mind, and you're going to be thinking about that. And the next time you see not blueberries, but anything that's awry or out of place, you're like, yeah, don't step over the blueberries. I better do something about it. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. That's a great way to. If there's a book called Made to Stick that I read years ago by Dan and Chip Heath, and it talks about using examples in your stories that people will remember. There's on the cover of their book, I still remember to this day, I probably read it 12 years ago. There's a piece of duct tape on the picture.
Yeah.
On the cover. You just can't forget that, right? Like, so Made to Don't Step Over the Blueberries is really cool. And the meritocracy part, I want to talk a little bit about that, because I feel like just in general, your industry, the hospitality industry, is probably the most meritocratic industry there is, right? It takes people from all walks of life, all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds, all levels of education, people that, were born with a silver spoon, and people that have spent time in prison, and we put them all together. And it's just, if you're, and you talked about hiring for emotional intelligence. I mean, if you are emotionally intelligent and you're willing to work hard and show up for your team and take good care of your guests, nothing else really matters. And it gives you this opportunity. When you talk about opportunity, I think about, don't step over the blueberries, but also in your group, opportunities to grow, right? You went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and you guys will probably keep growing. In a meritocracy, if you do your part and work hard for the team, then as the business grows, then you get to take on more opportunities and have more responsibilities. And that's one of the things I love about this industry so much, is it really is a true meritocracy. And it's great to see that just is, part of the foundation of your culture.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud to say, I'm trying to think of all of our locations. So the general manager of the living room was a food runner when we bought the restaurant. Our chef partner at the Black Pearl was the sous chef. Our executive chef of the living room was like an hourly manager. Our bar manager / managing partner of Sonder was entry-level bar manager for the living room brand. So we really try to take people from within and have them grow with us. And what I love about that word opportunities, it's so multifaceted, right? And that's something that I love about it. But the one thing that we talk about often is what's difficult in this business, and what a lot of people, and actually I had this issue when I first started, because again, I came from a corporate environment. And so in my mind, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to be as rigid, be a little bit more of a nice boss or whatever. And I thought leniency was like a way of, I don't know, being a better place to work. And so really, until I noticed that when you take that opportunity to invest in somebody, give them that constructive, kind, empathetic criticism to how to improve in their role or as a person, that's when the magic starts to happen, right? Because when you talk about emotional intelligence and hiring, I always like to say a good hospitality company will take, a good server, make them better, or a cook. An exceptional hospitality company will take a good server, make them exceptional. And same thing with a cook. But an exceptional hospitality will take a bookkeeper and make them an exceptional server, line cook or whatever. And where that all comes from is obviously training, and then also just continually taking the opportunity to make people their best selves. And we can always train people the skill, but I can't train will. So that's why we're really big on hiring for emotional intelligence, and making sure that we have the right personalities in the building, the people we want to spend half of our lives with, and that's been successful for us. It's been good.
Yeah, I mean, you can know everything about, I don't know, wine or something like that, and just you could be the smartest person in the world at wine and know everything you would possibly want to know. But if you don't love people and you just love this product and you don't love people, it's not really probably going to work out for you in hospitality, because that's, it is a people business, right? At the end of the day, what you do is a people business. And like you said, people come, I mean, there's one end of the spectrum where there's like fast food and everything's automated and AI and equipment will make the food. But man, when people come to your places, I've got to imagine, they're coming there because they're celebrating a win, they're mourning a loss, or, like my family just did. I got 3 kids, and, a week or two ago, we were just like, man, like we didn't want to cook dinner. We just wanted to go somewhere and just be taken care of for an evening. And that's all about the people. You got to get the food right. You got to get the ambiance right. But if the people suck, then you're probably not going back,
Well, yeah, I
because
mean,
you'll find somewhere with,
exactly. Think about it. You've probably been to a restaurant with marginal food, or not the fanciest experience or whatever it is, quality. But if that server makes you feel seen and heard, if
Yeah,
you feel like you're a part of that family when you walk in the door, you're going to go all the time, right? And so that's where
yeah.
the magic of hospitality happens. And I feel like at some point between like the late 90s and early 2010s, the majority of our industry lost sight of that. And I think it became more about like product but I think there's been a huge push, with like Will Gadar and this whole Unreasonable Hospitality, Danny Meyer, but on really focusing on hospitality in general. And that's, for us, like I said, it's pretty much all we focus on is making people feel good. So, yeah.
Do you read a lot?
I do like
I
to
mean, I know
read.
you read over
Yeah, I
COVID
like to
stuff.
read. Yeah, I
Okay.
like to read. I kind of jump around. I'm not a big fiction guy, but I like learning. So anytime I can learn something, it's a good read.
There's a book called Hospitality DNA. I'll send you a copy of that. We had those guys on the podcast, Dave Nitzel and Dave Domzowski, and they went and interviewed some of the top hospitality people around the world, and sort of wove through sort of the common narrative or the common threads across those narratives into this book called Hospitality DNA that came out last year. Really good. I'll send you a copy of it. I've got some, highly recommended.
Awesome.
Um, so tell me about, look, we got, I don't know you, we got connected through our mutual friends at Opus, and I've just gotten to know them a little bit. We're going to have Rachel on the podcast here. So I don't know a ton about them either. We got connected. I had a really fine conversation with Rachel. Love what they're doing. Love her style. Love her personality. Tell me a little bit about them, since they were the bridge for you and I today.
Sure. Yeah. So, again, it's kind of a story, but I think you had read online, we kind of pay our front of house employees uniquely with commission and service
Yeah.
charges and all that. But so basically, we charge a service charge, and the servers take commission, and we're able to pay the cooks more. It just works better for the restaurant than the tipping system. But, one thing we looked at ourselves pretty hard and said, hey, if we're going to be guaranteeing a 20% experience, it better damn well be a 20% experience. And so
Right.
we really took a big investment in training. And so I did a bunch of research and went to some shows, and I found Opus. I can't remember where I found them exactly. But yeah, they're kind of a disruptor. So Opus is a blended learning app for restaurants. They do retail as well and other types of industries. But essentially, it's training geared for like Gen Zs and millennials, Gen Y, and it's all on the phone. It's super easy to manage. It's super easy to implement things. And really, we built out a massive infrastructure with them, and it's been crucial for us in implementing our culture. So, not only from a management standpoint, but from the servers. I mean, to have the ability to just take a video of yourself talking about something, push it to 165 different people, see who responded to it, maybe have a little test at the end, and again, it's all on their cell phone. So it checks to make sure they're clocked in at work, and then it works awesome. At every restaurateur I've talked to about what we're doing or our culture, I always bring up Opus because it's been such a neat tool, and it's so easy to use. And the nice thing, it like automatically translates into several different languages, and not like Google Translate where it doesn't translate properly and it says funny things. It's very good. So we didn't have to worry about that. Obviously, we have a pretty good Hispanic population in our organization as well. So they could read in their native tongue, and it's been really, really great. It's awesome.
So are you constantly adding to it? You're taking videos of yourself saying, here's how we do this, whatever this is.
Right. So I guess I'll just take a position in there. Let's take a host. So a host gets hired with us. There's a QR code. They put on their phone. It brings them to the Opus app. It automatically will know because we'll tell it that they're a host, and then it will assign them based off our training program. All the materials for each day they should be on those materials. It tells a manager when they're completed with certain things, and it's called a check-in. But when a manager has to like make sure they know how to wash their hands properly, let's say, it'll buzz the manager will come over, they'll check it, and then we have that record. It's also nice because it's all recorded. So that's how the assignment works. One thing that's great is we're constantly adding to it, tweaking things. But what's nice is, let's say you have a server that's maybe newer, great personality, newer to the business, and isn't quite up on their wine presentation or so on and so forth. At the end of the shift, you can say, hey, I watched you, open a couple bottles of wine. I really appreciate your hard work, but I am going to reassign you those wine opening courses on Opus, and I want you to take them tonight. And so it's kind of this continuous. It takes learning, and instead of sitting on like a computer in the back of the house for 3 days going through all these videos, it makes it continuous all the time. So that's one thing I love about it. It keeps things fresh, and it gives the managers the opportunity to invest in their people where they might have some gaps with skills, if that makes sense.
It does. So you did a lot of research into this, and I'm not real familiar with that territory. So what were the things that were different about it? You said they were a disruptor. So this is not something that a lot of other providers
No
have.
one. No, yeah, I have not found.
Okay.
So when you talk about LMS, learning management systems, typically they're either like the old school, way old is like the VHS in the watching the video in the back, but more recently it's you sit at a laptop or a computer, and it's a web-based application where it's kind of similar to what we do in Opus. But what Opus does is it puts it in your hand, and what's nice is it reads like a text message. So the employee just scrolls like Instagram or TikTok. So, they're very good at that. So, it's very natural. And I think the retention of the information is a lot better because, it's fun. There's memes and GIFs and, emojis and all sorts of cool stuff that you can put into it. And it really enables you to, I think, rapidly change the way you're teaching in the restaurant. Whereas like the old legacy LMS systems take a lot more on the back end. And, an organization of our size would not be able to probably manage that properly. Or I can manage this from my cell phone. We have someone that focuses on training, but if not, I could do it, from my cell, it's amazing. I'm a big fan of Opus.
That's really cool. What an endorsement. Okay, well, that's cool. That helps me learn a lot more. I mean, I've spoken to them a little bit, but to hear it coming from you, that's really helpful. So thank you. All right, y'all. It is time for a little mid-episode break. We're going to talk about Kickfin. Thousands of restaurants, bars, and breweries use Kickfin to tip out their employees instantly. No cash required. With Kickfin, tips go directly to your employees' bank of choice the second their shift ends. It's a really simple solution to a really big problem because if you're still paying out credit card tips in cash, it's costing you. Time-consuming bank runs and cash counting take managers away from work that matters. Cash is hard to track, which leads to accounting headaches, and it creates the perfect opportunity for theft, human error, and compliance issues. Bottom line, There's never been an instant secure way to pay out tips until KickFin. It's an easy-to-use software that sends real-time, cashless tip payouts straight to your employees' bank accounts, 24/7, 365. KickFin gives managers hours back in their day, makes reporting a breeze, and protects your business from risk. Most importantly, employees love it. Restaurants can have KickFin up and running overnight. Employees can enroll in seconds. No hardware, no contracts, no setup fees. Visit kickfin.com for a personalized demo. See how restaurants across the country are digitizing tips with KickFin. All right, that's what they asked me to say, so I say it, and it tells the story very well, but I like to add this in. We referred a customer that we know and love very well, Sup Dogs, to KickFin. Sup Dogs has been a customer for a super long time. Trust them very much with their opinion on these types of tools. They started using KickFin. I asked Brett, the owner, recently how it's going. He said, KickFin is perfect. It's going great. Exactly what we were hoping for. So there you go. Kickfin.com, y'all. Check them out. Tell me about your pay structure. We touched on that, but when did you decide to change it, and just what's happened from that?
Yeah, so in 2000, and I think it was 19 or 18, the Florida passed higher minimum wage, which I voted for. I'm all about higher wages. But the problem is when you look at the landscape of the tipped minimum wage in Florida, which is when they rolled it out was $6.98. But the tipped wage will eventually be $12 in Florida. And what that does to the ecosystem in a restaurant, and I'm assuming that you understand how the tipping model works, but I'll just go through an example. So if I have a $100 check in a normal restaurant, and I tip 20%, I give the server $20, right? The server in 90% of restaurants is going to take $5 of that and have to give it to, a busser. They're going to have to take $3 and give it to a bartender and the host. And that's how kind of compensation works in a restaurant. So everyone works on service minimum and everyone gets tipped out. The problem is, that's a class action lawsuit waiting to happen because you have employees paying employees, and there's typically very little verification between the two. But also, the problem is, 20 or 30% of the pay is basically these tip outs, right? So what we did is I did a bunch of research again, and I found a group called Fire and Vine Hospitality in Seattle, and they implemented about 7 years ago something they call a commission model. And so what we do is we charge a 20% service charge on every check. That service charge is the property of the restaurant. And what we do with that is we pay the server's commission. That's more than they would have walked with on a 20% tip before, with their hourly rate factored into that. We then pay them a lower hourly rate and then push the difference between the hourly into the kitchen. And then the leftover of that commission that's not paid out to the server goes to do what it did before. It goes to pay barbacks, but we just pay them high hourly rate. So we start a barback, whatever, $20 an hour. And so, employees aren't responsible for paying each other. They can all focus on selling. It puts everyone on the same team. But my favorite thing about the program is, if you have a plumber come to your house, right, and they fix a leaky sink and you leave, or they leave and the sink is still leaking, you don't call the plumbing company and be like, I need to cut this guy's pay, right? But in restaurants, if you get I'm not saying you, but if a guest has a steak that was cooked improperly, they're going to cut the tip. But that's not that person's fault, right? And that's where the tipping model comes into I think a little bit of, there's some ethical issues there, because now I'm making a server pay for the mistake of the restaurant. Because they tip out based off sales, not off tips. So if they get stiffed on a check, they have to reach in their pocket and pay the bussers and bartenders and all that stuff. So what this model does is it makes it my responsibility, right? So no longer is it on the server to reach into their pocket. They get paid regardless, right? They have a guaranteed income. They can focus on selling. They don't have to worry about anything besides their craft and what they're doing. And so, obviously we rolled this out. It's drastically different than what a lot of people do. And I'll say for retention in the restaurants, it's been amazing. We've had to educate the guests about it, but really the biggest kind of aha moment for us was maybe like 4 or 5 months after we rolled it out was like I said, the kind of the honest look at ourselves and saying, hey, we could be doing better, with our excellence. We could be doing better with training and teaching people exactly what we're doing and what we expect. And so we've made a very large investment, both in time and money, into the way that we train hourly employees, especially the service team. But I will say, most restaurants can't find back of house help. We have not had any issues across the board with anybody. So we rolled it out the front of house folks make about 30% more than they did before, which is substantial at some of our brands. And then the back of house, I think we gave blanket between $4 and $6 raises across the board. So when we first rolled it out, so we typically start cooks, back of house folks, $4 to $5 more than restaurants surrounding us, and then our servers make more based off this whole commission thing. The nice thing about commission too is if you have someone that's a really good server, and they just are a master of their craft, and someone wanted to give them 30%, they can leave an extra 10%, and that goes straight to the server. There's no tip outs, there's no nothing. So we have servers leaving with like 30% of their sales, which is absurd because before they were leaving with 12, 13%. So it works out really well.
Absolutely. Very cool. What's next for y'all?
So we're currently in the process of looking, maybe for a new living room location, number 3. And then we have a couple irons in the fire in Tampa. We're on the Pinellas side, but on the Hillsborough side for a new fine dining location, kind of a new bar, 2 new fine dining locations and a bar. So that's, so 4 new things in the works currently. Nothing solid or that I can say where the locations are, but we're currently talking with some real estate folks and trying to, work things out. But it's exciting. I'm 35 in March. And so, we have a lot of time left. So it's exciting to think that, we can grow that much more in the next 10 years or whatever.
Well, that was my next question. I mean, you're a young man still, and so you've got a good growing business. You've got multiple concepts. Do you, like, when you think long, do you think about a concept that you go, okay, this is really hitting, like we can scale this thing, like we can really take this one and lock in on it and just scale.
Absolutely. Like the living room is a good example. I'm super passionate about all of our brands. My wife and I, though, we love destination dining and going, Michelin rated restaurants and so on and so forth. And the living room is not a Michelin restaurant, but it is a very good restaurant. And it's scalable. So we kind of have 2 parts of our business, if you will. We have our, kind of large format scalable concepts, and we have our, passion driven, passion projects, if you will. We call them boutique restaurants, but trying to grow both sides of that portfolio at the same time is an interesting task because, they're very different in the way that you build them. They're very different in the way they manage them and how you across everything. So we typically have all sorts of stuff going on. But it's exciting because, I think the living room is very scalable and the new stuff we're opening up in Tampa, hopefully we'll go for a Michelin star. We'll see how that goes, but that's the goal.
Do you own any of your properties or do you lease?
Yeah, so we do own the Black Pearl. It's actually currently undergoing a renovation. We're bringing the storefront up to what it looked like in 1905 when the building was built.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, super neat.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so we own that. We're kind of in the process and talks with the living room landlord of the original living room. And then both Sonder and the new living room are in big development so that there's no ability for us to buy those. But yeah, anytime we can get into the bricks and the sticks, we're all about it. Makes things a lot easier for us.
The bricks and the sticks. What's changed? I mean, there's some interesting stuff going on with commercial real estate right now, and I'd be curious how things go in the next few years. Is it getting are you able to negotiate a little bit better lease rates these days? Or
yeah,
a lot of places have closed. And
well, being a restaurant operator, it's interesting when it comes to commercial real estate because a lot of times when we're looking at projects, people want us to be the anchor, right? So this new living room location we're talking about. I'm not going to say where it is, but the tenant or the landlord of this location wants us to be the draw, wants us to be the reason why people are coming there and staying there and growing dwell time. So typically we are able to negotiate, pretty favorable leases. I definitely think the landscape is a lot easier than it was before COVID. But there's definitely still challenge. And it really depends on the project, but I would definitely say as a whole, it's much easier now post COVID than it was previously to be negotiating for new locations.
So there's a book, another one I was thinking about. I know you said you weren't necessarily big into fiction, but it's called A Land Remembered. And I read it a few years ago. It's one of my favorite books. It talks about the history of real estate development in Florida. And it does it through 3 generations of a family that started out as cattle ranchers during the Civil War era. And then you see how the son takes over and then the grandson and what happens in Florida from the Civil War to sort of current day and with real estate development and everything. It's just, so you could see it as being a real story. It sort of tells the story of that through a fictional lens, but Super, super good book. It was fascinating. I mean, Florida's history and the development of real estate down there is just it's a unique place, and it's a really interesting dynamic for sure.
Yes, the state built on citrus. Yeah, a lot of citrus railroads. Most of the big families in Florida had some sort of, you know, involvement in citrus or in transporting citrus. Like in Dunedin, we had a family here, still, one of the biggest property owners. But yeah, they had a citrus railroad, and in fact, they still have a Minute Maid factory sort of on one of their properties. But it's interesting. I love the history piece. And anytime we can find a location where we can fold in some of that history, or like an old building, or that, we love that. We love to make, the restaurant brand that we're building a part of the history of the city that it's in. So we're very fortunate in Tampa to have some cool, older properties with neat history here. Not
You absolutely do. Yeah, and you're good. You look, man. I mean, telling stories is it's an important part of this. People want to understand. I'm really surprised sometimes when you don't you when people don't tell their story. I mean, that's an interesting thing. It's an interesting differentiator. We love stories from when we're little kids. We want our parents to tell me a story,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And it's an important part of the process. So I love the fact that you talked about being into film, and I mean, we've done a couple of books called Restaurant Owners Uncorked. We've done this. I've been doing this podcast since I had to beg people to come on this podcast initially. I mean, like nobody, but I'm like, I want to tell stories, but nobody knew what podcasts were like 10 or 12 years ago. It's cool to see people learning to use the different mediums and the connectivity we have through social media and so forth now to tell their stories, because everybody has a unique story. Each place has a unique story. Each building has a unique story. Each team of people and have their own stories that guests love that stuff. It's a great way to connect with the people you do business with.
Well, I think too, it's what, I'm not going to say a lot of restaurateurs, but a good majority of restaurateurs don't think about that. They don't think about the story. They don't think about how it folds into other people's lives or how it folds into the community. And we try to be thoughtful about all that stuff. I think it's probably one of the most important things is your brand narrative and how you fit into the community around you.
Totally agree. So I'm coming down, not quite to where y'all are, but next I'm leaving Thursday and going down to it's like about an hour south of Orlando. My buddy has this hunting cabin, and we go down there and we hunt wild feral pigs, and it's 22,000 acres, and it sits on a swath of land that is 400,000 acres large, and I had no idea, but the largest landowner in Florida is the Mormon Church,
I know
and they own 400,000 contiguous acres, like sort of south of Orlando, right down sort of the middle and southeastern from Orlando. And so these guys have this 22,000 acre like little corner of that property, and there's about 20 of them. And they have these cabins, and the church wants them out there on it as much as possible because the wild feral pigs are just, I mean, they're a nuisance species. They tear everything up, and they farm palm trees down there, and they have cattle. Anyway, so
that's cool.
it's an interesting place. So we go down there every year in January, and just rarely ever do we actually shoot anything, but it's just kind of a guy's trip. But awesome. It's a neat part of your state. But I had no idea. He told me a few years ago he had this cabin. He's like, you know who the largest landowner in Florida is? And I was like, probably Disney. He's like, no, it's the Mormon Church. They got 400,000 acres.
I learned something new every day. I didn't know that.
Most people don't. I've met a lot of people in Florida that didn't. That's why I wanted to share that with you. So I think Florida is sort of like plan B if things go, awry out west. So, well, man, listen, dude, Zach, this is really cool. I really enjoyed talking to you, and you got a cool thing going, man. Congratulations. I mean, to be 35 and do what you've done, you're a sharp dude. You clearly have, you operate with a lot of intention, and you have really good vision and foresight. So I mean, it's an honor to have the opportunity to talk to you and to share your story. I'm sure that people on your team love being a part of it. Your energy and your vibe are awesome, man. So thank you very much for doing this. Thanks for talking about, I mean, I appreciate the folks at Opus for getting us connected, man. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your kind words. Yeah. I always say that the day I stop enjoying what I do is the last day I'll do it. And so every day is an adventure. Every day is fun. And, I can't complain. I'm doing what I love to do. So I appreciate your time as well. Thank you for, being interested in chatting with me, and, it's been fun.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you very much. And folks listening, thank you all. Another episode, more coming soon. This was cool, man. So thank you. Have a good day, Zach.
You too.
All right, man. See you. Hey, y'all, before you dial out, just a quick request. If you are listening to this podcast on iTunes, if you would give us a star rating and a comment, it would be so helpful. If you're on Spotify, if you'd follow us or whatever platform you're on, if there's a rating or a follow, please do that. What that does is it tells these algorithms to put this content in front of more people that are looking for this type of content. So if you enjoy the episode, please do that. Thank you so much for listening to Restaurant Owners Uncorked or watching on YouTube. We appreciate you. We're proud to be able to do this, and we're just going to keep putting out great content, y'all. So stay tuned. Thank you.